Parmanu Paramah Tattva Tasya Vashikaraha. So by practicing, when you practice this Eka Tattva Abhyas, what happens? Patanjali Rishi is telling us that we are able to master or we are able to control the subtle as well as gross elements. That means Sukshma and Sthul. Both the elements we are able to control. We are able to gain control on these elements or on these tattvas. Next, what is samapatti or sampradnyata samadhi? क्षीणवृत्तेः अभिजातस्य एव मणेः ग्रहितु ग्रहण ग्राह्येषु ततस्त तदञ्जनता समापत्तिः. Kshina vritti means when the vrittis, they become very weak. Kshina is weak. When the vrittis or the modifications of mind, they become very weak. When we are practicing meditation, what happens as we practice? We are able to gain control on our mind, on our senses. So these modifications of mind, they, with time or with practice, they become weak. Then what happens? When the modifications of mind have been weakened, the mind becomes like a transparent crystal. Now we know how is a mind? It is like a transparent crystal. How is a crystal? You keep it in front of anything, or you keep it on a red cloth. You will see that transparent crystal, it starts looking red. If you keep it on green cloth, it will look green. So similarly, when all the modifications of our mind, they are weakened, what happens is that our mind, it takes the form of whatever object is in front of it. So just like the crystal, it identifies with the color. Similarly, our mind, it identifies itself with the whatever object of samadhi or whatever object of concentration that we have chosen. Now, whether it be a perceiver, grahitu, the perceiving, grahana, or the object of person. So, thus it can easily take on the qualities of whatever object is observed. So, it can be the grahita, it can be grahana, that is the experience, or the grahyeshu, or the object of perception. Now, how that is done or how it happens, we will see one by one. Now, Maharishi, over here, he spoke about first Ekatatvabhyas, all the different methods of making our mind calm by practicing Ekatatvabhyas. Now, when our mind becomes calm or serene, or when our mind is in blissful state, what happens? So, here in this sutra, Patanjali Rishi told us that it becomes like a crystal, clear. Now, for example, if we pour water in a red glass, it looks red. If we pour it in a green or blue, it looks like that. That is how our mind also seems. Now, it is important to note that this state is a part of Sampradnyata Samadhi, and Sampradnyat Samadhi is only referred as Samapatti. So, Sampradnyat Samadhi and Samapatti both are one and the same. And when a yogi, he attains this Sampradnyat Samadhi or Samapatti, this yogi, the practitioner, he must maintain a particular lifestyle. That is a sattvic lifestyle. Why? Because at this stage also, it is possible that he might get distracted or he might get disrupted with different things, and his practice might stop or it might hamper his practice. And the mind that was calm, that will again become the senses will start running here and there, and the senses will take control over the mind. It could happen because Raja and Tamaguna are still somewhere there, though the mind is pure. So, the yogi needs to have a sattvic lifestyle. Since the mind is pure, free from the influences of Raja and Tama, any negative or pure object or thought that enters can disrupt this natural serene flow. Then, therefore, it is essential for a life of purity and discipline. I have explained the same thing. We know what is Grahana, Grahaitu, Grahana, Grahita, and Grahayeshu. Now, let's understand that what is the fruit of Sampradnyat Samadhi or Samapatti, when your mind becomes clear like a crystal, then what happens? Huh? So, in the next few sutras, Patanjali has answered a few questions like when Purusha becomes one with Chitta, or when the Grahita becomes one with the sense organs through which he is experiencing the object, or when Grahita becomes one with the object only, then what happens? So, everything will have a different effect. So, what are those effects? So, that is explained. Now, what is Savitarka Samapatti? We had already seen Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita. So, in Vitarka, there is Savitarka and Nirvitarka. So, first is Savitarka. Tatra Shabda Artha Jnana Vikalpahi Sankirana Savitarka Samapattihi. So, Shabda, Artha and Jnana. In Savitarka Samadhi, we know that Vitarka is meditation on gross object. That we know. We had studied. Now, what is Savitarka? Savitarka means now if I'm meditating on something, or if someone says a cow, a very common example that is given over here is that of a cow. That if someone says or utters the name of cow, or if a yogi focuses in their mind on that animal cow, what will happen? That word, that cow, it will come in front of him. That okay, cow, COW, cow. Then the meaning, cow is what? The qualities that it gives milk, it has 4 legs, it has tail, it looks like this. So that meaning and knowledge, everything comes. So the word, the meaning and knowledge, all three are there in his mind. And they experience each element separately. So a yogi in Savitarka Samapatti, he experiences each element, the word, the meaning, and the knowledge of cow separately. What happens to common people when we say cow? We cannot experience it separately. We don't know how to bifurcate it. But a yogi, he can distinguish between all these three, and it is very difficult to even explain. That is what is told in the Granthas. It is only the person who is experiencing it can understand it. We can't understand through words because it is not that simple. So you just have to understand over here that a practitioner in Savitarka Samadhi, he experiences the Shabda, Artha and Jnana separately. The Shabda, that is a word, Artha, that is a meaning, and Jnana, that is knowledge. All these three things he experiences distinctly. That when a yogi experiences it distinctly, that is called as Savitarka Samapatti. Then, from Savitarka Samapatti, the yogi goes to Nirvikalpa Samapatti. Nirvitarka Samapatti. Vitarka is of two types, Savitarka, Nirvitarka. So in Savitarka, the practitioner knows Shabda, Artha and Gyan. All these three. He experiences it separately. Now what happens in Nirvitarka Samadhi? Understand it be very focused when you're listening to this, because there is very minute difference. What happens in Nirvitarka Samapatti is Smruti Parishuddhau Swarupa Shunyaiva Arthamatra Nirbhasa Nirvitarka. So in Nirvitarka, what happens? The Smruti or the memory, when your Smriti or your memory, it is purified. Parishuddhau. Shuddha means purified. So when our memory is purified, Smriti Parishuddho Swarupa Shunya. Swarupa Shunya means we forget our own presence. When we are meditating, in Nirvitarka, we were aware. Now, in Savitarka, we were aware of it, that we are meditating. In Nirvitarka, what happens? Swarupa Shunya. We forget our own nature. Swarupa Shunya. When the mind achieves identity with the gross object. So what happens? I forget who am I. I forget I'm meditating. I forget about my presence. So the mind achieves the identity with the gross object. So I become one completely with the object on which I am meditating. I become one with the object on which I am meditating. Now here, Shabda and Jnana, it vanishes. In Savitarka, there was Shabda, Artha and Jnana. Three things were there. In Nirvitarka, Shabda and Jnana, they disappear. They vanish. And only the essence of the object on which we are meditating, only that essence of that object remains. Because we also become one with the object. Now, from previous example, there is no perception of the name and the knowledge of Tao. Only the essence of it remains. Here, I have explained it with a simple example. Mobile hai, okay? Now, we know mobile, huh? That mobile, from mobile, we can text, we can call, what happens in the mobile. So, we know the name, we know what the mobile does, the meaning for what it is, and then we have the knowledge of everything about the mobile. Now, that is Savitarka. But in Nirvitarka, what happens? We forget what the mobile looks like. We forget what the mobile does. We forget everything. We only know that, okay, there is some object, or there is, or not even object, this is mobile. That is all. You forget this is my mobile. You forget what the mobile does. Everything is gone. Only the awareness of this remains, that it is a mobile. So Shabda and Jnana, it vanishes, and only the essence of the object remains. Artha matra nirbhasa. So Artha matra nirbhasa, that means only the essence of that object remains. The Swarupa Shunya, that means my Swarup, I become one with the object. Smriti Parishuddha, the memory, it is purified. So Swarupa Shunya, only Artha Matra Nirbhasa remains. No Shabda and no Jnana over here. That is Nirvitarka. Then, moving ahead. Eta eva sa vichara nirvichara cha sukshma vishaya vyakhyata. Now here, in this sutra, Patanjali Rishi is telling us that by this process of concentration, that means in Savitarka and Nirvitarka, we were concentrating on the gross objects. In Savichara and Nirvichara, we focus or meditate on the subtle objects. When we had studied Vitarka and Vichara, if you remember, Vitarka is gross objects, meditating on the gross objects. And Vichara is meditating on the subtle objects. So the process remains the same. In Savichara and Nirvichara, the process of Nirvitarka, Vitarka and Nirvitarka, and Savichara, Nirvichara, the process is same. What is the difference? In Vitarka, we meditate on the gross object. So the object in front of us is gross. In Savichara and Nirvichara, the objects on which we meditate, they are subtle. That is like Tanmatra or Ahankar or Man. So these are the subtle objects. When we meditate on these subtle objects, then the same things happen. We have the same experience that we have in Savitarka and Nirvitarka Samapatti. Only difference is there it is gross, the object we meditate on is gross, and here the object on which we meditate is Sukshma. That is the only difference. Then Sukshma Vishayatvam Chalingam Paryavasanam. Then when we keep meditating on these subtle objects or Sukshma Vishaya. So if you see, the meditation is growing very focused now. It is narrowing. We are very near to our goal. Patanjali Rishi here tells us Sukshma Vishayatvam Chalingam Paryavasadam. That means when we meditate on the subtle objects, then what happens? The subtle objects end in a linga. That means the subtle objects, if we know Sankhya, Darshan, we have studied Tanmatra, we go backwards. So I have shown over here charts. chart. Okay. So the subtle elements, it dissolves, like tanmatra and everything, they dissolve into ahankar. Ahankar dissolves into mahat, and mahat, it dissolves into mula prakriti. So that is what is told over here. That in savitarka and nirvitarka, the subjects are gross. In savichara and nirvichara, the subjects are subtle. Now, how much are you going to meditate on objects? So here they are saying that if we examine the subtle objects and inert substances, we can relate it to tanmatra. Then tanmatra to ahankar to mahat. Now mahat, we know it is called as linga. Mahat is called as linga. Now mahat also further dissolves into prakriti, which is a linga, beyond which there is nothing. Beyond prakriti, we know there is nothing. That is the end of it. The reverse. जैसे हम लोग उल्टा जाते हैं वन वे से. So the reverse of Sankhya evolution theory. So the prakriti, it doesn't dissolve into anything, and hence it is called as a linga. So Patanjali Rishi is telling that the subtle objects, when we meditate on the subtle objects, where do these subtle objects end? They end at a linga, that is prakriti. Now, tae was sabija samadhi. That means these kinds of samadhis are with seeds. Whatever samadhis or meditation methods or we have discussed, all these had seed. Well, we meditate on objects. The object could be gross or subtle, but there were objects, and hence they are called as sabija samadhi, bija. Sabija, with bij. Now, what happens when we go ahead from sabija? What is the next step? What happens when we attain nirvichara samadhi? So then he tells us, nirvichara vaisharadhye adhyatma prasadaha. That means when, as per Sankhya, we go on towards the subtle objects, towards prakriti, towards alinga. What happens when the practitioner attains success in nirvichara samadhi? The result is that they begin to see things as they truly are, and they attain adhyatma prasada. That means when the practitioner, he keeps on practicing nirvichara samadhi, then what happens? He comes to know the truth. He gains the knowledge that is real, and that knowledge Patanjali Rishi is calling as adhyatma prasada. The knowledge or the gyan that he attains in nirvichara samadhi, that is called as adhyatma prasada. Now here I have given the example, just like if we climb a mountain. Now if I stand over here on ground floor or on the road, I cannot see things clearly. But if I go on and stand on a tall building or on a mountain, and if I look everywhere, I will see the city or that area very clearly. I will get a clear perspective how big it is, how many trees are there, whether there is pollution, not pollution, the beauty of it, whatever it is. I can get a very clear perspective. I can see things very clearly. So that type of wisdom or that type of knowledge where we see the things very clearly, that knowledge or that gyan we attain in nirvichara samadhi. And when our buddhi becomes sattvic guni, when sattvic gun, it increases by the practice of nirvichara samadhi, what happens? Rutambara tatra pragya. We attain rutambara pragya. That means rutambara pragya means knowledge. As a result of the illumination of the sattva gun, when sattva gun, it increases in a practitioner or a yogi, he starts looking at things, or he starts understanding the things which he previously didn't understand or normal people didn't understand. He is blessed with the wisdom. जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं ना कि wise people और ज्ञानी हो जाते हैं. So that intellect or that knowledge or that wisdom that is attained by nirvichara samadhi, what is that knowledge called? Rutambara pragya. And this knowledge is of the highest kind, highest state. No form of contrary or false knowledge arises in that yogi's mind. Now, when a yogi attains Ritambara Pragya, he cannot be distracted or diverted. Previously, in previous sutras, we saw that even though the practitioner is practicing Samadhi, he's meditating, still there are chances that he can be distracted from his practice. But once a practitioner attains Rutambara Pragya, this is a very high kind of like intellectual knowledge, a very special kind. Then what happens? No matter what happens, he cannot be distracted. He's on that level. For example, now you're studying for NET exam. Okay, abhi aapko, if I ask you questions, you'll be confused. If this is this or this is that, you may not be able to answer it properly. May not. I'm not saying you हो सकता है आप आंसर करेक्ट है, but it could, there are chances. Or if I ask you 2-3 questions, then you might get confused. But when you continuously study again and again and again and again, by the time your exam in December, just before the NET exam, your knowledge will be so crisp and clear that anything in exam, if any question comes from Patanjali Yoga Sutra, you will be able to answer. Everything will be very clear. Each and every sutra, its meaning, no matter how twisted the question is, still your knowledge will be so proper and appropriate, and you will have so clear understanding of everything that you will be able to answer the questions correctly. So same is over here. Now what happens? Now if the yogi has attained that wisdom, that intellect, high level intellect, special wisdom, but then what happens when he attains Rutambara Pragya? So Patanjali Rishi in the next sutra tells, Shruta Anumana Pragyabhyam Anya Vishya Vishesha Arthatvat. Shruta Anuman, that means the knowledge that is gained from Shruta. That means when you hear something, when someone is telling you, you hear whatever the other person is saying. And from whatever you have heard, you start drawing conclusion या inference. You draw inference. अनुमान लगाते हैं आप. Okay, but the knowledge that is gained from listening to someone, Shruta and Anuman, it is about common objects. It is about the objects that are in our day-to-day life, that almost everybody knows. But the knowledge that we gain from Rutambara Pragya, it is of much high order. It cannot be gained by just listening to someone or drawing inference. It is of a much higher level. Then what is the result of Rutambara Pragya? Okay, the knowledge is of higher order. It cannot be gained by Shruta and Anuman. That means किसी का सुनने से हमको या किसी का सुन के इन्फ्लुएंस लगाने से हमको पता नहीं चलता है, वो ज्ञान ग्रहण नहीं कर पाते हैं. We cannot gain the knowledge by listening to someone and drawing inference. It is not that kind of knowledge. It is not that simple. It is a special kind of knowledge. It is a knowledge of higher order. So when we gain such an knowledge or wisdom or intellect, Rutambara Pragya, then what happens? Tajja samskaro anya samskara pratibandhihi. Then that what happens is the impression or the sanskaras that are produced from Rutambara Pragya obstructs all other accumulated negative impressions or Vyuthana impressions. So this knowledge, it obstructs, or you can say it stops all the other sanskaras that are Vyuthan, or that would fluctuate your mind or create negative impressions. Now Vyuthana, we had studied Vyuthana. Kshipta, Mudha and Vikshipta are Vyuthana state. So these are the state of minds Vyuthana which distract us. But in Rutambara Pragya, what happens? All the sanskars of Kshipta, Mudha and Vikshipta, they are obstructed. The yogi is not prone to it, or the yogi is not susceptible to Vyuthana state or Vyuthana sanskar. Tasyapi nirodhe sarva nirodhat nirbijah samadhi. So what happens? That by the restraint, now we know that, okay, we have attained Ritambara Pragya, we have gained the knowledge, highest wisdom, highest intellect. Now, the yogi even has to restrain that knowledge. That also you have to control, or that also you have to leave. And only then a practitioner attains Nirbija Samadhi. So, when we let go Ritambara Pragya, then we attain Nirbija Samadhi. So this is the highest state of yoga, Nirbija Samadhi, where there is no seed. Nirbij, seedless, there is no seed. That means gross, subtle, there is no object at all. For here I've just given a simple example. Like, for example, if you're walking and a thorn, it pricks your foot, and you try to remove it with your hand, your fingers, but you don't have nails, so you're not able to remove. So what you do? You don't find anything else to remove. So you take another thorn and you try to remove that thorn. So when you remove the thorn from your foot, do you keep that thorn because that thorn had helped you? You don't. Though that thorn had helped you remove the other thorn from your foot, you don't keep it. What do? We discard that thorn. That also we remove. In the same manner, what happens that after practicing meditation, dhyan, samadhi, different ways of samadhi, when we attain Ritambara Pragya, and from Ritambara Pragya, we free ourselves from everything. At last, we have to let go that Ritambara Pragya also. Only then you will attain Nirbija Samadhi. Otherwise, it is impossible to attain Nirbija Samadhi. So when Ritambara Pragya, when we are free from Ritambara Pragya, or the impressions that are generated from Ritambara Pragya, only then we can attain Nirbija Samadhi. As long as even good impressions are present in the person, this is very important. I just put it over here because I really liked it. See, as long as there are good impressions, we know that we don't want bad impressions or bad sanskaras. But even good impressions are an obstacle in the practice, because every good impression has a seed in some form. So the possibility of negative impressions again coming back, negative sanskaras again coming back, are there. So if there is no seed, then there is no possibility of any negative impression re-emerging. Hence, it is even we should be free from good impressions.